List.io.
Hello and welcome to my channel. This is CJRocks87 and today I want to showcase my 50 cal machine gun build. This is it. This is my 50 cal machine gun. It is a bloodied explosive roll. Its damage increases up to 95% as health decreases, and bullets explode for 20% weapon damage. Now this is only a 2-star weapon. That's because I got this as a drop from an event, Uranium Fever. So that's why it's only a 2-star. If you do craft this, I would recommend you crafting it as a 3-star. The mods I'm using for this gun is the Prime Receiver. And I did compare the receivers for this gun, and I did notice that the Prime Receiver was still getting the most damage even after this most recent update, so I would recommend the Prime Receiver. I'm also using the Heavy Barrel, which is the only option to use for this mod slot, and it does increase the damage. And I'm also using the new skin off of the scoreboard, the Presidential Paint, which I think it looks very nice on this weapon. And since we are using the Prime Receiver, it does use Ultrasight 50 cal ammo, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to craft that as well. Alright, and this is the Ultrasight ammo for the 50 cal machine gun. It uses Ultrasight. It uses Violet Flux, which is one of the harder fluxes to craft. However, when you do use Ammo Factory maxed out, and the Ammo Smith perk from the agility perks, it does increase this up to 900 per craft, and so that makes this very efficient to craft. And I did play around with this weapon for a couple hours using events, and I did notice that with the increased contextual ammo drops that Bethesda recently did in the Blue Moon update, that this gun actually can sustain itself now. I was using it for several hours, and I really wasn't dropping my ammo. I was carrying about 6,000 rounds on me, and I was keeping that the whole time for several hours. I didn't have to go back to my camp to get more ammo. So that is another great thing I love about the ammo for this gun. It is just super efficient. And this is my armor that I'm using for the build. It's a full set of Overeater's Union Power Armor. The most important effect I'm using is the Overeater's effect. The other stars are not too important. However, I will note that on 2 of the pieces I am using ammo weight reduced by 20%, and that is a factor for this build. So I would recommend getting at least 2 pieces of ammo weight reduction. And the Overeater's effects increases damage reduction up to 6% as you fill your hunger and thirst meters, and with having 5 pieces of this, we will have 30% damage reduction as long as we are keeping our hunger and thirst meters full. And these are the base specials for the build before any special legendary perk cards. I have 10 in strength, 3 in perception, 8 in endurance, 7 in charisma, 12 in intelligence, 7 in agility, and 9 in luck. Alright, and this is what our specials look like after our legendary perk cards. I will go over the legendary perk cards first, as they do affect the rest of the build. I am using maxed out legendary agility, maxed out legendary strength, maxed out legendary endurance, and maxed out legendary luck. And then I'm also using electric absorption. I have this at rank 3, and I am also using rank 1 of sizzling style to get some fire resistance. So the most important for these is going to be the specials. You want to have 4 maxed out special cards. It's not too important which 4 you have maxed out. However, the ones I do have maxed out are going to be the most beneficial. The one I would, if you did want to switch one of these out, I would recommend the agility. You can swap that out for intelligence, and that would be a good swap if you didn't want to use the agility one. I'm using sizzling style because I felt I needed some extra fire resistance, especially with all of the increased fire damage from the recent patches. This just feels so mandatory to help survivability. And then I have electric absorption. This helps against energy damage, and it'll heal us and recharge our fusion core every time we take energy damage. I feel like this is a mandatory perk for every power armor build. I wouldn't max this one out first. I would do the legendary specials first, and then you can go ahead and max that one out. As you can see, I don't even have this one maxed out. It seems to be pretty efficient even at rank 1. Alright, and these are the normal perks I have for the build. So with all of our legendary perk cards, we have 15 in strength, and I have maxed out traveling pharmacy. The weight of all stims are reduced by 90%, and I carry a lot of stim packs and chems as well, including psycho buffs, so this is a mandatory perk for the build. I have maxed out Master Heavy Gunner, and Expert Heavy Gunner, and that's to max out the damage for our heavy gun. We're using the 50 cal, and that is a heavy gun, so this is going to max out our damage. And the last perk I'm using is maxed out blocker. We're going to take 45% less damage from my opponent's melee attacks. This is also a very mandatory perk to tank with. I found without this that you can get downed by goals slapping you. So I find this a very mandatory perk. I have 3 in perception, and that's so we can have maxed out green thumb, reap twice as much when harvesting flora. This is a quality of life perk. If you don't have the specials for this, that's fine. You can drop it. I would only recommend having 2 in perception, and that's so we can have maxed out grenadier. This is going to be very important for the build since we have a 50 cal that is explosive. The grenadier is going to cause our explosives to detonate with twice the radius, and this does affect the explosive effect on our 50 cal machine gun, and it will increase our damage as well. For endurance, I have 13, so we can have maxed out Life Giver to get 45 to our maximum health. I have maxed out Chem Fiend, so our chems last 100% longer. Our chems will actually last 5 minutes instead of 2 minutes with this, and I do use psycho buffs, so this is a very mandatory for my build. I'm using maxed out Fireproof to take 45% less damage from explosions and flame attacks. Again, this is a mandatory tanking perk. I have Radical. The greater your rads, the greater the strength, plus 5 to strength. And since this is a Bloodied build, this gives us extra carry weight, which is very helpful. I have maxed out Rejuvenated to gain even better benefits from being fully fed and fully hydrated. Since I am using the Overeater's armor, I am also always going to be fully fed and hydrated. This is going to give us even better benefits. It actually increases our max health even more and gives us better AP regen. We have 7 in Charisma, and that's so we can have Strange in Numbers. Positive mutation effects are 25% stronger if teammates are mutated as well. I recommend this on every build. You always want to be mutated, and this is just going to make it stronger whenever you're on a team. I have 3 in Tenderizer to make your target receive 10% more damage for 10 seconds after you attack. This is very good. It increases your damage, so I highly recommend this one. And then I have maxed out Inspirational. When you're on a team, gain 50% more XP. This is not a mandatory perk. I like to have this on so I can max out the scoreboard faster and max out legendary perks quicker. So it helps me level up faster, and that's why I like to have this on. If you don't have as many maxed out legendary perks as I have, and you don't have enough room, you can definitely drop this in your build. Next we have 12 in intelligence, and that's so we can have maxed out nerd rage. Since we're a bloodied build, this is a mandatory perk. We're always going to be below 20% health, and that's going to give us 40% damage resist, 20% damage increase, and 15% AP regen. Next I have Scrapper. This is just a quality of life perk. I constantly am scrapping weapons and armor, so I don't want to keep constantly putting this on and off of my build. So I made a slot in my build for it. If you don't need this, you can definitely drop it. Next I have maxed out Demolition Expert. This is so our explosives do 60% damage, and because I am using an explosive 50 cal machine gun, the Demolition Expert is going to increase the explosive effect of our gun, and thus it will increase our damage. So I highly recommend this is a mandatory perk for the build. Next we have maxed out Stabilized, and that's while we're in power armor. Heavy guns gain excellent armor and ignore 45% armor. I recommend this for every power armor heavy gun build, mandatory perk. Next I have 12 in agility, and that's so I can have maxed out Through Hiker. Food and drink weights are reduced by 90%. I carry a lot of food and drink, and this is mandatory for my build. If you don't carry a lot of food and drink, you can definitely drop this one. Next I have rank 1 of Born in Survivor. Falling below 20% health will automatically use a stim pack once every 20 seconds. This is very helpful when we're taking a lot of damage, when we don't have the opportunity to stim pack. This will save your life. Although it does eat quite a lot of your stim packs, so do beware of that. Next I have maxed out Adrenaline, and that's so I can gain plus 10% damage for 30 seconds per kill, and you can get a maximum of 60% damage. Duration refreshes with kills. This is a mandatory perk for damage. I highly recommend this for every build. Next I have maxed out Dodgy, and that's so I can avoid 30% of incoming damage at 30 action points per hit, and this increases your survivability greatly, though it does use your action points, so do be aware of that. Next I have 14 in luck, and that's so I can have maxed out Bloody Mess. 15% bonus damage means enemies may explode in a gory red paste. This is just damage increase, so we're taking it. Next we have maxed out Class Freak. Reduces our negative effects of our mutations by 75%. This is mandatory. I have a lot of mutations on this build. If we didn't have this, we would take a lot of negative hits to this build. This is another mandatory perk, Starch Genes. This is so we will never mutate from rads, and Radaway will never cure mutations. Next I have Good with Salt. Food in your inventory will spoil 90% slower. I carry a lot of food and drink, and I don't like to, and I use a lot of food buffs on this build, and so I don't want to have to constantly be crafting food, and this helps keep it, your food will almost never spoil with this on. It will eventually spoil, but it'll take a very long time. If you don't want to use food buffs with the build, if that sounds inconvenient to you, you can drop this for one gun army. That'll increase your cripple and knockback with the gun. I personally don't run that perk. I don't feel it's necessary. However, you can run that over this one if you don't want to use Good with Salt. The last perk I'm using is maxed out Ricochet. Gain an 18% damage to reflect back some of enemies' range damage, no PvP. And this is another mandatory tanking perk. That 18% chance will actually proc on every bullet, so every time a bullet comes at you, it has an 18% chance to be reflected back, and it does happen quite consistently, so I highly recommend this one. Alright, now these are the mutations I'm using for the build. The first one I'm using is Adrenal Reaction. You get more weapon damage at low health, and you will take -12 to your max HP. This is mandatory for the build. It is the reason why it is a bloodied build. So this is just going to increase our damage. The next one I'm using is Bird Bones. This is kind of a quality of life one. I find like anyone should be using this in power armor because it does reduce your fall speed, and it's going when you fall from heights in power armor, you get that annoying animation. I like to call it a superhero landing, and this will get rid of that to a degree. When you still fall from extremely great heights, you still will get that superhero landing, but not quite as often as you would if you did not have this mutation. And you'll also get +5 agility, which is a bonus. Even though we don't really use agility for this build, that still is pretty good. Next one we're using is Egghead, and that's just so we can get an intelligence boost of +8. And just so you know, all of these bonuses are with Stranger in numbers active, so we're getting the increased effect of that as well. So yeah, we get an 8 to our intelligence, and -1 to strength, and -1 to endurance. I like to have high intelligence in order to level up quickly. So if you don't want to do that, that's fine. You don't need to run that, but that's why I run this mutation. The next one I'm using is Herbivore. Eat veggies but not meat with no disease and 3 times benefits. So you can only eat vegetables with the Herbivore mutation. However, the benefits that you get are extremely, as it says, they're tripled. They're normally only doubled, but since I'm using Stranger in numbers, it is tripled. And I highly recommend being an Herbivore as a heavy gunner because you get a lot of good benefits, which I will go over after I go over the mutations. The next one I'm going over is Herd Mentality, and I am always on a team, so this gives you -2 to special if you're solo, and +3 special while you're grouped, so while you're on a team. So I am always on a team, and it will always give me +3 to all my specials. The next one I'm using is Marsupial. That'll give you 25 carry weight and increased jump height, and -1 to intelligence. This is a very good quality of life mutation. It'll make you very mobile, and I couldn't imagine playing Fallout without this one. Highly recommend. Next one is Scaly Skin. This is so we can tank better. It gives you 62 energy and damage resistance, and you only take -12 from AP. Lastly, we have Speed Demon. It'll increase your hunger and thirst 50% while you're moving. However, it increases your movement speed by 25%, and it'll increase your reload speed. Alright, lastly we have the food buffs that I'm using for this build. I am using Silt Bean Soup, Glowing Fungus Soup, Brain Fungus Soup, Blackberry Honey Crisp, and Tato Juice. You can also use corn soup instead of Blackberry Honey Crisp. I'm actually only using Blackberry Honey Crisp simply because I have the cookie jar and I'm getting that for free, so I don't even have to craft it. But the reason, my Blackberry just dropped, I will go ahead and reapply that. And when you reapply it, it shows it's an 1.5-hour buff. So the reason I'm using these particular foods is because, Tato Juice, so we can get that 25 to max AP. I like to increase my max AP. I like to run a lot, so this just gives me more AP to play with. And it, for dodgy as well, gives you more AP for tanking. I always use either Blackberry Honey Crisp or corn soup. Blackberry Honey Crisp is obviously the better of the two. It's a longer duration buff, 1.5 hours, and you get a 12.5% AP regen. With corn soup, it's a 30-minute buff, and you get a 7.5% AP regen with that. But corn soup is a lot easier to craft. You only need corn and water to craft that. Blackberry Honeycrisp is actually really hard to craft. I wouldn't recommend doing it. I'm only using it because I own the cookie jar. Next one I'm using is Brain Fungus Soup, and that's so we can get +5 intelligence. Again, I like to boost my intelligence as high as possible so I can level up quicker. Next I'm using Glowing Fungus Soup, so I can get +50 rad exposure resist. This just helps us take less rad damage. We already don't take very much rad damage being in power armor, but there's certain situations where you do, and this is just helpful to have a little bit extra. And lastly, I'm using Silt Bean Soup, and that's so I can get +5 to endurance, and that just makes us more tanky. And also reduces the action point drain on our whenever we're sprinting. Alright, and next I'm going to go ahead and go over the power armor mods that I'm using. So on the legs I'm using calibrated shocks, and that's to give us +50 carry weight per leg. That's so we can carry as much as possible. Next I'm using optimized bracers on my arms. That reduces action point cost of power attacks for melee weapons, and I actually use this because I like to use auto axes for certain things such as daily ops whenever it has the resilience mutation, and this is just helpful for that. You don't really need any type of mod for your arms for power armor for this particular build. Next on the torso I have emergency protocols, and that's so we can it reduces damage taken by 50% and gives us 25% move speed when our health is below 20%. And this is why bloody builds are so powerful even in power armor, because you can tank a lot of damage. Alright, and lastly on my helmet I am using targeting HUD. I notice a lot of enemies in this game blend into the background, and so targeting HUD will light them up and making them easier to spot. You can use a different one if you don't like to use this one. You can also use the one that boosts intelligence if you want to boost your intelligence even higher than mine is shown here. And with all of my buffs, I'm going to go ahead and show how my specials are in power armor with this build. So it's showing 23 in strength, 6 perception, 22 endurance, 10 charisma, 31 intelligence, 20 agility, and 17 luck. And actually 3 of that intelligence is due to my being on a casual team right now. Alright, lastly I'm going to go ahead and show off the power of this build, so I'm going to go ahead and port to a few locations and fight some enemies. So I'm over here at West Tech, where we have all the super mutants. And earlier I went over the Grenadier perk and how the explosive effect works with this gun since we have the explosive perk on. I'm going to go ahead and show you how the gun fires without this perk first. Alright, and now with the perk on, and as you see the radius is greatly increased. Alright, we're going to go ahead and reload, and I use Psycho Buff, so I just popped a Psycho Buff. All my food buffs are on, very good. Now I will go ahead and fight them. Alright, and as you see the damage is very good. They are dying very quickly. And the thing I love about the 50 cal is there is no spin up on this weapon. It is an instant fire gun. So it's not like the Gatling Plasma or the Gauss minigun where you have to wait for it to fire. You just fire immediately. And as you can see, we're not really taking a lot of damage either. Let's see, let him fire. It appears he's doing energy damage too, and since we have that perk, that's healing us as well. But yeah, as you can see, it kills very, very quickly. Okay, I'm over here at Solomon's Pond, And once you're here, all you got to do is turn around and climb down this hill. And we're going to go all the way down to the bottom to get to the superhuman behemoth, and I'm going to go ahead and show off the damage with this gun against this one. Alright, here's the super mutant behemoth. Just got to wake him up a little bit. Alright. And there's his health. Alright, and as you can see, we are just wrecking him. Absolutely. Alright, and the last place I'm showing off is the Mirelurk Queen. Here she is, and here we go. And as you can see with the 50 cal with this explosive effect, it just absolutely does so much damage. I was extremely impressed with this gun. And as you can see, it does a lot of damage. I was really impressed with this weapon. I use the 50 cal as a kind of a beginner weapon as a heavy gun, and I haven't really touched it since. It didn't really do a lot of damage for me, even compared to the final word, which you get from Beckett's questline. And this one doesn't really do a lot of damage compared to the one I have, simply just because I have the Bloodied roll. And yeah, see, when you take off, it's going to show the less damage, so it does only 127. And that's really why I stayed away from the 50 cal for so long, just because it couldn't compete with the damage of the Gatling Plasma or the Gauss minigun. However, with this roll, the Bloodied explosive effect, it does amazing damage. As you can see, it's at 222, so it's literally double the damage of the final word. So yeah, I definitely recommend this. If you have never tried a Bloodied explosive 50 cal, I definitely recommend chasing that roll and giving this build a try. Thank you for giving my video a watch. If you like this content, go ahead and give me a like and subscribe. And I will see you all out there in Appalachia. I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Artlist.io